All right, let's just dive right into it. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are going to completely tear down, and I mean completely dismantle and then rebuild one of the most famous psychological frameworks in the entire world. We're going to take a super widely accepted model of human behavior, crack it wide open, and figure out why it might actually be causing a massive amount of dysfunction in our lives. We're going to re-engineer human needs, not as these vague, fluffy desires, but as a strict, almost mathematical operating system. Let's get into it. So, we're looking at a deeply hidden ethical flaw in Tony Robbins' 6 human needs. Now, if you're familiar with the self-help world at all, you definitely know this framework. It tells us we all have 6 core needs, right? Things like certainty, variety, significance, and love. But we have to start with a really uncomfortable question. What if treating our loved ones as literal tools to get those needs met is actually destroying the very intimacy we're trying to build? Take a really close look at the sleight of hand happening in this quote. It describes human beings, your own family, as mere vehicles for your emotional ends. Think about that for a second. If family is just a vehicle to give you feelings of connection or significance, well, then the people in your family are essentially just tools. And if a tool stops delivering those good feelings, well, the logic kind of suggests you should just replace the tool, right? That's a huge problem. And this brings us right into a massive philosophical collision. The famous philosopher Immanuel Kant argued that you must never, ever treat humanity merely as a means to an end. It's a fundamental rule. If you're constantly calculating how a person meets your needs, you're firmly stuck in what another philosopher, Martin Buber, called the transactional I-it domain. You're treating a person as an it. And when you do that, actual deep intimacy becomes mechanically impossible. I mean, you literally cannot have true intimacy with a tool. So, to fix this fatal flaw, we really have to redefine these needs. They aren't just emotional flavors you pick and choose from. They're strict mechanical operations with a mathematically forced order. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the hidden ethical trap. Second, building the engine. Third, the expansion phase. And finally, closing the flywheel. Okay, starting with part 1, the hidden ethical trap, resolving the sleight of hand through structural physics. We begin this whole teardown by understanding exactly why a descriptive map of our desires cannot and will not function as an operating system for fulfillment. A map just tells you what's out there. It doesn't tell you the correct order to walk the path. So, here's the absolutely crucial point. A framework designed to consciously extract utility from other people reinforces pure transactionalism. It's honestly like taking an employer-employee contract and importing it straight into your living room. If you use your spouse the way a boss uses an employee just to maximize your own emotional returns, the whole system collapses. Treating people as ends in themselves isn't just a nice moral add-on. It's a structural necessity for your system to actually run.
Now, because there are 6 needs in this framework, there are exactly 720 possible ways to arrange them. 720 permutations. But our analysis of the source material proves by construction that out of all those 720 options, only one, literally just one specific sequence, actually sustains perpetual motion without causing you to completely spin out. Every single other arrangement contains a hidden contradiction that will eventually surface as a total system failure.
Moving right along to part 2. Building the engine. Nodes 1 through 3, which form the closed loop of known territory. Let's look at how this builds our baseline subsystem, the one capable of running indefinitely on familiar ground. This is the absolute foundation that has to be laid before you attempt anything else. All right, node 1 is connection. But wait, we're redefining connection here. It's not some warm, fuzzy emotion. Instead, it is our absolute epistemic foundation. What that means is, it's how we actually know what is real. It's your grip on reality. Without this unmediated direct contact with the real world and the real people in it, you have zero traction. Without this grip, you are literally driving on an icy road without snow chains. You're gonna crash. Connection absolutely has to come first. So once you've established that grip, we unlock node 2, contribution. Because you are fundamentally connected to reality back in node 1, you can actually see the exact shape of what's missing in the world or in a specific relationship. This makes contribution a highly calibrated, targeted investment. It's not just blind altruism, right? You give exactly what is required specifically because your grip on reality told you what was needed in the first place. And guess what? That precise contribution inherently triggers node 3, which is growth. When true connection outputs an accurate contribution, your system expands mechanically. We aren't talking about reading a bunch of self-help books here, it's practically physics. You've successfully converted the fuel of reality into structural growth without bleeding out any energy. Your skills increase, your relational depth deepens, and your overall capacity just expands. Okay, so this stable triad forms what we can call the engine room of the human operating system. Connection gives you the target, contribution takes the action, and growth scales your capacity. Doing it in this order ensures we aren't just spinning our wheels chasing phantoms. Honestly, a lot of highly functioning systems stop right here. A steady business, a stable marriage, and you know what? That's completely okay. It's a great baseline, but it won't generate new territory. Which brings us to part 3, the expansion phase, nodes 4 through 6, pushing the system into unmapped territory. Once the engine is entirely secured, we can experience a phase shift into the unknown to extract some truly profound value. This is where we move from just operating safely on familiar ground to actually pushing the boundaries of what's possible. But listen up, because here comes a massive warning label. You absolutely cannot push into the unknown without a stable engine. If you do, the system just violently spins out into chaos. If you try to skip ahead and jump to the expansion phase without your grip, your contribution, and your growth firmly locked in, well, congratulations, you are probably going to blow up your life. We see this all the time with adventurers, mystics, and entrepreneurs who just crash and burn. So node 4 is uncertainty, but notice something important here. Uncertainty isn't the chaotic flailing of some adrenaline junkie. Actually, it's the deliberate choice to test your robust system against totally unmapped realities. Because your engine room is running so perfectly stable, you can now safely push the whole system to the very edge to discover the highest form of aliveness. Next up comes certainty. Now, in this model, certainty isn't some neurotic need to feel safe right from the start. Not at all. It is the absolute, quiet confidence of a master craftsman who has survived the irreducible surprise of the unknown. You explored the wild out there, and you brought back the gold. It's earned proof. It's never just an upfront demand. And that leads us to node 6, significance. The absolute golden rule here is that you do not chase significance. Seriously, if you chase it, you just turn into a narcissist. Instead, you emit it naturally. Why? Because you hold the hard-earned certainty of how reality actually operates. You essentially become a lighthouse for other people who are still out there trying to find their own grip. So this 3-step expansion loop takes the scaled capacity of your engine, tests it at the very extreme edges of reality, extracts the reliable truth from that adventure, and then turns the resulting data into an orienting beacon for everyone else. Input, output, scale, explore, lock in, broadcast. It's a totally perfect sequence-dependent pipeline. And finally, part 4, closing the flywheel. Why this unique sequence prevents total systemic collapse. Now we're going to look at the telemetry, the actual data, on what happens when we violate this highly precise sequence. Like what exactly happens when we try to play mix and match with these 6 nodes. If we look at the actual pathologies, jumping the order of operations forces a catastrophic system failure. Let's say you skip establishing a real grip on reality and you go straight to chasing significance. What happens? You become a whole narcissist, constantly performing for an audience you have absolutely no real connection to. Or what if you just contribute endlessly without allowing growth to scale your capacity? You're going to hit severe depletion and burnout. If you chase uncertainty without the earned certainty of a stable engine, you're just an adrenaline junkie creating pure chaos. The sequence absolutely matters. But the real beauty of this entire architecture is that it acts as a completely closed feedback loop. By demanding that connection, meaning valuing reality and people exactly as they actually are, by demanding that comes first, we totally eliminate that ethical trap of using people as tools. And maybe most importantly, the lighthouse's emission of significance has to remain coupled to reality. Otherwise, the signal goes completely false. That means significance must loop right back to connection. The very moment you become the lighthouse, you have to maintain unmediated contact with the world. You have to keep looking at the sea. If you stop looking, you lose your grip. The entire loop breaks. And you just become a fake, a mannequin in a costume. That continuous feedback loop is exactly what keeps the entire engine running perpetually. And that brings us to the ultimate takeaway. You know, this isn't just some abstract philosophy, it's a deeply practical diagnostic tool. So I'm going to leave you to diagnose your own operational pipeline today. If your life is spinning out right now, are you stuck in depletion or stagnation or chaos simply because you bypassed a required step? I really want you to think about where your internal system might be breaking down and then go build that prerequisite node. All right, thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.